to drive your career, not just ride along? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I'm Simone E. Morris, your host and career strategist, here to give you the roadmap. Each week, we're cutting through the noise with strategies, stories, and insights to get you back in control. Your career clarity starts right here. Welcome to this week's episode of the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. Today we have with us the fabulous Irina Dymarsky. I'm excited because Irina and I go way back, and we'll talk about that on the show, but a little bit more about her bio. She is a technology executive with a proven track record of leading complex, multi-stream programs and transformative initiatives. Irina, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Simone. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Absolutely. Well, tell us a little bit more about you and what you're currently doing.
I am a technology executive by trade. We can talk about all the different steps that it took me to get where I am today. I'm very proud to say that I work for a fantastic organization called Avixa, and I am their head of IT.
Awesome. Awesome. Did you always want to be head of IT in your career?
I actually did, and I do have a story about that if you're ready to hear it.
I am. Tell us the story.
All right. Well, maybe I wasn't always sure that I wanted to be a head of IT, but I always wanted to be like a technology executive of some kind, and I wanted to have a broad scope. And I had a fantastic boss who is still a mentor today, and he shared with me early on that he had a goal of becoming a CIO by age 40, and he did it, and it was really inspirational. And so I was like, how did you do it? What's the playbook? I want to do that too.
Nice.
So tell me exactly what you did, and I'm just going to do the same thing, and then I'll just be as successful as you are. Well, as you're smiling and nodding, that's not how it works exactly, right? You can't follow someone else's playbook. So certainly I didn't have a playbook, and I went through the different opportunities. And so every time a new opportunity arose, I said, does it bring me closer to this long-term vision of having broader scope, learning something new, and kind of adding to my toolkit? And I guess it did. And it was ups and downs, and some were lateral moves and some were promotions, right? We can talk about that as well. But as long as I feel like you're following that North Star for where you're trying to go, at the end, you get where you want to be. And so I'm very lucky to maybe have missed it by a few years off of that 40 CIO by 40 that my mentor had, but I am in a perfect place for where I wanted to be now, and I'm leading a great team with lots of scope, delivering really amazing results for the business.
That's awesome. I love that you had this career vision. A lot of people struggle with, where do you want to be in 5 years? I remember when I was in corporate, I used to hate that question because I was like, I don't know. But you knew where you wanted to be. And so if you go back in your career, just keep going back. How far back do we have to go where you really knew, like, that's your North Star?
So I think IT didn't really evolve until maybe high school, college. But in my 5th grade yearbook, under the picture, it says, what do you want to be? And it said business executive. And so
I love that. Oh, that's great. Let me go get my yearbook. I love that.
Maybe that's a little nerdy to say, but and business executive or businesswoman, maybe it says, because at that point in time, so again, like I'm not going to date myself, but there wasn't this you're an IT or you're cybersecurity, or I mean, I didn't understand the nuances of what business meant, and
Yes.
I literally said, like in my head, I was imagining a big building, think like New York skyscrapers, and there's like a person in a business suit, and maybe they're carrying a briefcase, before the evolution of all the things. But I kind of knew that I wanted to be around people, and I wanted to be having conversations and kind of like making things happen is like the very core of it. And I always knew that I wanted to do it on kind of the largest stage that I could possibly get myself onto.
I love that, Irina. And this show is all about being in the driver's seat. So we've got these two concepts of passenger, which can feel like hands off, and driver, which is hands on, intentionality, strategic visioning, etc. So when did you know that you were in the driver's seat for your career?
So I think it was probably 6 to 7 years after I started my first job. And I was really lucky to have my first job be with a big corporation. It was with Johnson and Johnson. It was a leadership development program, and it was very structured. So it was 2 years, and every 6 months you had a rotation, and you had to get your PMP, which is a project management professional certification. You had to get your Six Sigma green belt. You went to all the trainings along with all of your cohort of people who started. And so I didn't really feel like I was in a driver's seat at that point in time. I was just kind of like flowing with this program. And it wasn't until I took the first job after that outside of J&J with that amazing boss that I was telling you about. And he said to me, where do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you want to be in 10 years? I knew that I wanted to be a CIO. This is him talking at 40. What do you want to do? Make this journey, and I'll help you get there. And so it was that point in time where I was like, wait, I think I have to determine what steps I need to take to get there. And that at that point in time, like I said, it was probably like 6, 7 years after my first job. And I said, okay, if I want to have really broad scope, I need to learn all the individual pieces of it, right? Because no one's going to just hire like ahead of anything, right? Like ahead of a marketing function, ahead of an IT function, ahead of a business, if you haven't like really worked your way up. Because that's, I think, how people own their careers is by learning all the nuances. And you kind of hear this all the time. I was a analyst, and then I became a manager of a function, then I became a director, right? And a VP of kind of the function, and you become an expert in that field. Well, if you want broader scope, you can't really, it's not a ladder. And I don't know if you've ever seen this pictures in magazines or online. Your career is more of like a zigzag. It's not a, people think of it as a ladder, and I used to think it's a ladder, but long gone is that assumption. But I knew that I had to get the experiences. And so whether it was going up or sideways or maybe down, you're still picking up a new experience. And when you put it all together, then it was just recently when I was applying for new roles that I landed with Avixa. And I said, I feel like I've hit enough areas to really go for that next level job. And I know that, women and men treat this very differently, but for me, it was very important to say, I know enough to speak to every stereotypical function in an IT department and put it all together and then say, I'm ready to be a leader of these functions because I've had some experiences with them.
That's awesome. Thank you for enlightening us about your journey. Now, Irina, what would you say is your formula for owning your career? What are the key ingredients to be successful?
Yes. And so I'll go back to what I mentioned before. I don't know that it's a formula, but there's certainly things that work. I actually will make a joke because I followed your book, and you talk about journaling, and you talk about, really short term, maybe weekly check-ins. I've tried, and that doesn't really work for me. I don't think I'm just that. I, I don't know. It just doesn't go for me. So I've tried journaling. I drop it after a couple of days or a couple of weeks. But what I do like about that concept, because I agree with the concept, is that North Star that I mentioned in the beginning. So at whatever cadence, maybe it's not weekly, maybe it's once a year, maybe it's when you do your self appraisal. If you're working in a corporation, maybe if you're running your own business, you set your own cadence, but you say, am I on the path to that North Star? And so for me, I think the formula is there's some values that I feel like are really important for me. So evaluating if I'm still kind of happy and feel like I'm authentic in where I am today. Is my current experience helping to drive me to that North Star? And if not, maybe there's some extra experiences, or maybe there's some extra things that I want to seek out, right? So it's evaluating what you're doing, but always trying to do a little bit more than you were doing before. And so for me, I'll kind of make a joke about what we're doing right now. This year, I had a goal to be on a podcast. It's a silly one, right? And like, does it really get you that high? But I wanted to work on my visibility. I wanted to work on being kind of a voice in the industry. And my formula is telling everybody, like, set that goal and then tell everybody that you have this goal, because you never know who's going to be able to truly help you with that goal. So I remember talking to, a gentleman that I knew for many years, and I said, "Hey, you have a podcast. Can I be on your podcast?" And I think he was taken aback because I'm a very direct kind of person. And he was like, "Wait, well, what are we going to talk about?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Let's think about it. Let's brainstorm. Let's jump in here." So I did that one. That was my first one early on, I think early February. Then I had a random reach out. It's like you put it out in the universe. I had a random reach out from another gentleman who said, "Hey, do you want to be on my podcast?" And I'm like, "Yes." And then Simone, you reached out and you said, "Why don't you be on my podcast?" So literally, it's like you put it out in this universe, you tell everyone, and it's not necessarily the people that you tell who become that conduit or kind of the answer to your question, but somehow once it's out there, it becomes real and it magically happens. I don't know. There's some optimism there, truly, and I don't know if it's like too not tactical enough for people, but it's true for me. Like, that is my secret sauce. You just put it out into the universe, and then you kind of find everyone who can help you, and just keep telling people.
All right. All right. So manifestation, manifest your dreams. And I heard you talk before about your experience as a PMP and a Six Sigma, having that education under your belt. Can you think of anything, any tips, strategies, resources from that era that would be helpful to our audience, our listeners, when we think about career planning?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm a really big PMP nerd, and so everything is a project. So if you think about how you start a project is who is your sponsor? And so in this case, you can be your own sponsor. So I don't know whose code it is, but you can be the CEO of Irina Corporation, right? So you're the CEO of Simone Corporation, and you have people on your board. So who are the people around you? And you want people who inspire you, who push you to do greater things, right? You don't want people who are naysayers. I mean, you may have someone who's saying, "Hold on, that may be too risky," and that's valuable, but you don't want people who are not supportive of your vision. So you establish that kind of executive sponsorship team for your project. Your project is yourself and it's your career growth. And then you build a plan and you build a charter. So your plan might be this: what is this North Star? Way, way out in the future. It can be kind of a 10-year plan. It can be a 15-year plan. It could be once I get there, I will know. That's okay, I think, as well. And then what do you want to do to get there? So in a project plan, you have milestones, you have check-ins. So I mentioned, is it weekly? It could be. Is it monthly? It could be. Is it annually? That may work for you, but you do need at some point to be checking in, or maybe it's also as things come up. So in a project, you're always talking about how to de-risk things that you don't expect. And so in your career, you're going to have these moments in time where something happens. And I thought early on in my career that I would never lose my job as long as I did a good job. Like, you come to work, you try hard, you work well with people, like, you'll never lose your job, right? Because you're a good worker. Well, guess what? That already is not true for me, right? I was laid off from my job, and it was all because the company's financials weren't going right. There were politics, there was cultural inconsistencies, there was just different vision, right? You cannot help it. And so those moments, that's your risk moment in your project. This is your time to say, what is my next step? What am I going to do? And having a plan for that is really important. So yes, all in all, I think your entire career is like a project. You manage it like a project. Again, as nerdy as it sounds, not with every template unless you want to. I won't judge, but all those concepts apply. They apply to your life, they apply to projects at work, and I think they're really good tools in your toolkit.
Yeah, I appreciate that as a fellow PMP. and someone who cares passionately about planning. So it is very important, listeners, to get a plan in place for your career and be vested in that plan, because sometimes organizations will ask you to align your plan to their goals and objectives, and you want to make sure that, it's a win-win scenario. So Irina, you are in a executive position, and I wonder if you can offer any tips around promotion, those listeners that want to bump up in their careers. What are some things that make you stand out from a, executive presence, visibility, projects that you've worked on? What are some things that listeners can do to get noticed and get recognized and get those promotions?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think your mantra is your career is your responsibility. So I think somewhere in your books and your podcasts, you say, your boss is not going to own it, HR is not going to own it, right? No one's going to own your career for you. So as I said, manifesting and telling people, I think the number one step if you want a promotion is you should tell someone. You should tell your boss, hey, I want a promotion. I want a title. I want more scope. I want to try a project. I want to learn more about a different function. Whatever it is that you want, set that as a goal so that other people can help you achieve it. Sometimes people want to help you. They want to support you. They just don't know what you want. And so they think that, by giving you this new project, hey, Simone, isn't that what you always wanted? I think that you're going to be so happy to working on this project. And meanwhile, it could be something completely not what you wanted. So one, speak up about your goals and get that feedback and be proactive about your development, put it out there and manifest what it is that you want. And then certainly don't be afraid of failing. And I say failing because there's no such thing as failing. There's only opportunities to get better and learn from it. So you're not growing if it's not uncomfortable, and taking those risks. So sometimes you want to take a thing that's too big and maybe you can't eat it all in one bite. And you may not be successful or you may not like it, but now you've learned that you don't like it. Maybe you are a developer. And I hear this all the time. I have friends who have experienced it. You're a developer and you love development because you love to write code and you like that creativity of making things happen. And then you say, I really want a promotion. And it could be because of the money, of the title, of the perception that is kind of the path that you need to take. And so you get promoted to be a leader of a development team. Well, that actually means you're not developing, you're not coding as much, or you're not doing the thing that you love so much. You're instead managing people, or maybe you're managing priorities, or you're working on the alignment of the project plans. You end up not being happy in that situation. So that is, you asked me how to, and the how to is trial and error, I think, is the answer. So yes, put it out there, try it out, but don't be afraid that if it doesn't work, you step back and you reevaluate and you actually redefine your goal.
What happens when you get to the top? So you've had this North Star of being a technology executive, head of IT, and you're there now. What happens when you reach your goal? What's it like, and what are you thinking? How has your mindset shifted about your career?
Yeah, so I don't know that there's ever an end to it because there's always that one little thing that you can do more. I'm not going to go too religious on you, but there's many religions who say like one good deed is just one better thing that you did, makes you a better person. So you don't have to do 100 good deeds. If you just do one extra a day, or a week, or even in the whole year, if you do one extra thing that you would not have done before, then you're already kind of on a path to becoming a better person. So if you now apply that back to your career, there's always more to learn. There's other industries. So I've been really, really lucky in my life, and part of when we talked earlier about the career journey, is just trying different things and not being afraid to really go outside of your comfort zone. So I began in pharmaceuticals. I went to services. I worked in just a straight tech company. So each one of those opportunities was driven by a desire to learn something new and to tackle a more complex challenge, right? A more complex, something I don't know about. And those were the pivotal moments where I was creating those opportunities to get to the North Star. So the North Star is not this very specific exact thing. It's not a title. I would advise people for it not to be a title. It's a place of a place to be. So maybe an organization or a level or a scope of responsibility. And so in my current company, Avixa, it is a association and it is of a certain size and it has certain services or products. There's more to learn. There will be more growth opportunities. The company has a business plan to expand. Maybe it's a new region, maybe it's a new offering. The technology is going to grow with it. Or even we have a technology we want to evaluate for a new one. How do I deliver better synergies between the systems we already have? Well, that's all growth, and then maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years, right? Maybe there's a new opportunity. So then you're ahead of IT. You can be ahead of IT for a different company. You could be ahead of IT for 20 people, for 50 people, for 100 people. Maybe you want to consult. Like I remember, Simone, if you don't mind me sharing, I remember you sitting in the kitchen of our house and you said, I don't want to do corporate anymore. I want to do something different. I want to be on my own and I want to do this. It's terrifying. It was terrifying for me. I was like, oh my goodness, how does she do that? But, you want to be ahead of IT. Maybe the next step is consulting, with other heads of IT. Maybe it's becoming an advisor, maybe it's sitting on a board, right? And that doesn't preclude you from having the core job, but it's back to there's always that one extra thing you can do, right? You can write an article, you can write a book, you can speak at a conference. So those are all ways to grow your career, even though you feel like you're at a place where you're happy and that was your North Star.
Mm. Can you think of a resource that's helped you to sharpen the iron, stay current and fresh in your career? What's been helpful?
For sure, want the easiest right now is everything's on the internet, right? So you can kind of just follow your social media platform of choice, and maybe you want to go on LinkedIn. I think people post some, career content there. Finding podcasts. Just really good podcasts are amazing. I have been totally addicted to one called Acquired. I highly recommend it. It follows big name companies from their inception, from, step all the way back. It was created in, maybe generations ago. And how did it get to be where it is? And there's some business analysis. Asking friends for book recommendations. So I was networking and somebody recommended a book called The Range and I read it and I loved it. So that's a recent one that talks about AI and how, what type of tasks AI is really good at, and then what human combinations AI cannot mirror, for example. So like the complexities of connecting the dots across different industries is not what AI is really good at right now. So social, find it on social media, recommendations, go into a Spotify, Google just, the latest and greatest podcasts and try them out and see if there's one that hooks you, because then those people will continue to evolve and join Simone, right? Follow Simone for her podcast. I'm serious, right? And you get to meet new people. You can reach out to those who you hear and you say, hey, I just watched you on a podcast. Can we talk? So I think all of those, and if you're social, then just go out and network in person and say, hey, what are you reading? How are you learning? What's top of your mind? You never stop doing that because there's never an end to that.
I love that. It's been great having you on the show. And I'm curious, as I think about your career that you've shared with us in this episode, if you were to come up with a title for your career body of work, what would it be?
A career title. Okay. Um, Designed for impact.
Ooh,
I don't
design.
know, maybe that's something like that. I'll have to keep working on it, but that speaks to me because there's every chapter that focuses on driving some meaningful change and delivering some results, but it can be in kind of isolation, right? So you can take every step of your career, every year of your life, and you say, I had a goal, and this is what I accomplished in that year. So I'm really big on, have I made an impact? Have I made a lasting change? Did I, and it could be an impact to a person versus an impact of, I delivered a new system or we build a website and now this tangible thing exists there. So I don't differentiate impact in that sense, but it's piecing all the toolkit tools into one thing. And so this is my design, right? So I design a way to deliver impact. So yeah, design for impact sounds good to me.
All right. Sounds good to me too. Well, Irina, it's been terrific having you on the podcast. I could talk to you. I could continue talking to you. Uh, but I want to ask you to share with our listeners one way that they can remain connected with you if they'd like to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. LinkedIn is a great place to find me. Irina Dymarsky. You can find my profile and you can send me a message. I'd love to hear more and connect, and I'll share my favorite podcast if you share yours.
Hopefully, it's the Power of Owning Your Career podcast.
Absolutely.
Well, again, thank you so much for being a guest on the Power of Owning Your Career podcast.
Thank you for having me, Simone.
That's it for today's empowering episode. I'm Simone E. Morris, and I want you to remember that you are indeed the architect of your career. Share this episode if it sparked something in you. Subscribe wherever you listen, and find more resources at SimoneMorrisEnterprises.org. Keep practicing career ownership, and I'll be right here with you next week for more transformation.